I'm gonna follow him home. Kill his whole family.
Wait a minute! There's the Undertaker! Oh my God!
Wait, get your very own copy of DangerDoom right now for the low price of $13.
Resident Evil, more terrifying than ever.
As most of you probably know, Deltarune's Chapter 3 and 4 were released a month ago after nearly 4 years of build-up. Needless to say, I was in full-on jolly mode when the day finally arrived where I could play it. And said jolly mode stayed throughout my entire 16-hour playtime of the game on stream. I was both very surprised and happy while playing through it. Nearly all of my expectations of what I perceived the direction of Deltarune to be were shattered before my very eyes. I mean, hell, they revealed the Roaring Night at the end of Chapter 3. Must say, very glad I streamed my first reaction just for that moment. If you don't tell us who you are, then... Who is this?
What I've been waiting for.
It's the batter!
The Roaring Night appeared! Toby Fox has this habit of breaking expectations and delivering a product that is unexpected, yet enjoyable. It makes being a fan of his works that much more engaging, because I'll know I'll never have an inkling of a clue as to what's going to appear next. This habit carries over to his new characters as well. Going into Chapter 3, I was pretty confident that none of the new characters were going to hit the highs of the previous chapter's characters. Spamton and Queen are some of the most hilariously intriguing characters I've seen. They're oozing with personality, so for me, it was going to be a pretty hard act to come close to. Now, fast forward to 2 weeks into the future where I am sitting down and writing the script in a Google Doc after playing both Chapters 3 and 4, and I can confidently say that I was wrong.
Coming straight from your house. Coming straight from your house. I mean, he's the one. I mean, the king of. Oh, he's groovy and never gloomy. You can't get this from an egg. The sensation of your screen. The show that makes you scream. Say it with it, folks. Mr. Antenna's TV show.
I love Tenna. Don't get me wrong, I knew I would, but not to this degree. Nothing on this earth could have prepared me for how Tenna was going to be portrayed. We've had Tenna teased since the Spamton sweepstakes, and the payoff of all that time waiting for him was worth it tenfold. Everything about him was done so well, from his dialogue to his exposition and his boss fight. So much so that for the first time in my video essay hobby, I'm making a video dedicated to one singular character. On today's program, we'll be exploring the key aspects of Mr. Tenna that I find to both be charming and significant. Now, don't touch that dial, because...
It's TV time!
Right off the bat, I want to discuss the visual appearance of Tenna because it is a curveball. In terms of the actual clothing and design itself, it's more or less what I expected him to look like. Many artists got pretty close in what he'd be dressed like before the chapter came out. There's only so many ways you can slice TV head reality host. But, as you know, this is Toby Fox, and if you're gonna take a big slice from a cake, he'll just pick a different cake altogether. Tenna isn't sprited the same as the other Deltarune characters. They use this funky little method called render spriting. I'm not sure if that's actually the official name or not, but it's my video, so I'm calling it whatever you want. You got that? Basically, instead of making a sprite from scratch, the developers take screenshots of either real-life images or of 3D models. From there, they digitize it and whammo! Cool-looking 3D sprites. I'm not the most informed on the actual process of how this is done, and I don't have the time for proper research with all the projects I'm working on, so I do suggest you look it up. The most common place you'll find these techniques is in older fighters and FPS games, such as the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, the original Doom trilogy, and Duke Nukem 3D. That last one was just an excuse to mention Duke Nukem, to be honest, sorry. In that case, they took pictures of real-life actors and items to then convert them to sprites for the game. If we want a good example of the other direction of digitization using 3D model renders for the sprites, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy is the most standout example. Younger me was absolutely obsessed with the DKC trilogy for its visual presentation, because I had never seen anything quite like it. Rare did a phenomenal job with this pseudo 3D cartoony style that DKC possessed. I've always had an appreciation for both types of this sprite style in games, because something about it looks so cool. So you can imagine my shock and excitement when Deltarune revived this style from the 90s grave. They took the 3D approach and made a 3D model of Tenna. You can see this in both his in-game sprites and the TV time VHS that plays whenever he first appears, so that's neat. The Deltarune team made sure to make the most of the 3D element, with his specific poses and stature. First off, he's one of the tallest characters in Deltarune, and can actively change his size when he wants to. He's usually really large when he's happy or ecstatic, and his size decreases whenever he's sad or mopey. This causes each emotion he feels to be exaggerated to the highest degree, and really gives the chapter more visual comedy. Since he's a 3D model, this gives him more potential for hilariously fluent animation. They go extremely overkill with his animations, but in the best way possible. His most common is his tendency to start busting a move out of absolutely nowhere at varying speeds. He sometimes does it slow, does it fast, does it while sliding across the screen, etc. It's like a jump scare anytime he's on screen because there's a chance he randomly breaks it down. In fact, I'd say he's a walking jump scare given how varying his poses are. He can grow flowers on his nose, he can hit the soy jack pose, he can rapidly bow, and much more. He is by all definitions a cartoon character with how crazy his poses are. And each one of his poses are just excellently sprited and modeled, and his emotions are conveyed extremely well. And I think that fits his whole reality talk show host role greatly. When you're a reality TV worker, you have to be bombastic, excited, have larger than life attitude, be dripping head to toe in charisma. These poses help Tenna achieve that and fit his role the way he's supposed to, and make it seem like he's a big personality. Last thing I want to bring up about his appearance and visual representation is his text boxes. This one was just as much of a curveball as his 3D appearance. With certain keywords in his text boxes, he'll have specific graphics for them to help them stand out. I brought up visual comedy before, and this enhances it to an even greater level, which I didn't know was possible. And each one is wildly varying from the other too. I'll put a few of them on screen now so you can see just how polarizing they are. I think the little things like this make the character burst with personality in a way he wouldn't otherwise do. I said before that the whole talk show host energy was what they were going for with the poses being extremely exaggerated, but the text fills nearly the same role. It leaves you hanging on every word, or just laughing at the ridiculousness of it. It's weirdly in character to have these cheesy pixelated graphics just appear amidst the regular Deltarune text. It almost feels like it's edited in by the staff, like on a live TV program for an extra pop from the audience at home. One extra little cherry on top is with every text graphic, they bring a unique sound effect when they pop up on screen. Toby and co. use this quirk of the text to its limit with how effective it can be. Whenever a text graphic refers or alludes to a specific character, the team adds an adjacent motif from the character. If you don't know what a motif is, here's on screen. As an absolute music nerd,
I'm feeling a strong 9 to a 10 on this LP.
My two favorite instances of this are the cooking minigame that mentions Azrael and plays the his theme motif when the fluffy text appears, and the bangin' Susie Zilla text later on that plays versus Susie from Chapter 1. Cool little callbacks and micro references like this are what keep me so invested as a fan. The game rewards you for knowing these little things, and that makes the game itself feel very cohesive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. These little funny text graphics, his bizarre 3D appearance, and the wacky poses he takes makes him feel larger than life. His characterization is done so well not only for how he is narratively written, which we'll get to later, but because the visual aspects enhance what the game is going for with him. Last time I'll bring it up, I promise, but the talk show host aspect of Tenna's character is perfectly filled with all these little accent marks. He's loud, he takes up space, and even when the focus isn't on him, he takes your attention. He walks the walk and talks the talk. I mean, which other one of these Joe Schmoes can speak in the third dimension? From the moment I laid eyes on him, I knew he was special. Little did I know that the appearance was not the only thing that made him stand out.
What a slobber knocker, ladies and gentle crowd. Our two germ testants are neck and neck with 500 points each, and we've only got one question left. For up to 300 points, I bet you can't say a sentence without using the letter A.
You thought you just did something here, didn't you? Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but numerous sentences could be constructed without employing the first letter of the English lexicon.
Fuck you.
You probably don't know this, but I am a huge Warioware fan. I adore this silly little microgame series for how addicting it is. From a game design point of view, the series concept is well thought out, and I love it for it. Funny thing, before my previous video, I was actually working on a Warioware video essay behind the scenes, and planned to get it out before the Switch 2 release. Obviously, it hasn't happened yet, but I still am going to finish it for the future. Maybe after this video, who knows? And during my long live stream of Chapter 3, I thought to myself, wow! Surely Toby Fox, the creator of hit indie titles Undertale and Deltarune, would never place game design similar to the Warioware franchise in his newest chapters, right? Well, obviously he did, or I wouldn't be making a joke about it. Tenna's boss fight at the near end of Chapter 3 takes a lot of parallels to the Warioware series. Before we dive into that swimming pool, I'd like to take you around the Lazy Susan first. Let's talk about some Warioware game design, shall we? The premise of Warioware is pretty simple. Play quick mini-games called micro-games in near rapid succession in order to progress. These micro-games are meant to test your reflexes and critical thinking skills to solve somewhat simple tasks in such a heightened state of mind. It plays on the player's panic and stress from having to process information at a faster rate. Each microgame will be new to the player, and they must rely on their brain power in order to not only understand the task of the minigame, but to be able to successfully complete it before the timer runs out. Now, I might just be a little biased, but this is really fun. Your limits are constantly tested by each microgame, and you can get a really good rhythm down when you get used to it. Along with that, each main level usually speeds it up every 4 or so microgames, so the adrenaline begins to build. Being so hyped or stressed out of your mind can lead to you slipping up and making a mistake. Making too many of those causes you to lose the level and start back from the beginning. For a game that's targeted towards a general audience, you really have to use your brain power to figure out how to win fast. Each microgame honestly feels like a pseudo-puzzle where you have to figure out where each piece lands before the time runs out. Obviously, most puzzles are far more complicated than a WarioWare microgame, but you get the picture. It makes me personally feel so thrilled to go through each stage. Real-time problem solving while the blood is pumping is just so fun for me. Every time I get one right, it feels really satisfying to know I solved it. And every time I slip up, I shed a laugh about it and try harder the next time so I can advance. The amped up speed of each stage really gives the game a life of its own and easily makes it one of my favorite game series. With this in mind, how did Deltarune, of all games, translate this concept into its battle system? In order to progress the Tenna fight, you must choose the minigame act using some TP. Tenna will zoom you into his head, and it will transition to the minigames. There's a total of 6 possible minigames. For fun's sake, let's go through them real fast. The Rhythm Game, basically Deltarune's version of Guitar Hero. Hit the notes using the left and right keys. Eat your heart out, Undertale Yellow. Cook 'em, mama. Dodge the flames flying from the top and sides of the screen using Chris's tap dancing skills and twirls. Soul Shooter. Shoot down the rapidly approaching dancing Tennas before they hit you. Pretty simple. The Woody Game. The Cowboy Game. Shoot all the Tennas in the windows before they fire at you. Also, side note, this game reminds me of Wild Guns for the Super Nintendo ever since I played it. Very strange. Pokemon Ping Pong. Keep the sun and moon balls from hitting you on either side to avoid damage. This is the only minigame that uses soul mechanics if I'm not mistaken, so that's cool. Lastly, Susie-Zilla. Play as Susie and Crash Bandicoot spin your way into the Tennas before they kick you. Might be my favorite from the bunch for how cool it is. Hello everyone, Editing Espressive here. I just wanted to make a quick clarification I noticed while I was editing. So, one thing I failed to show off or mention in this segment is that 2 of the minigames actually have variations that get shown off later that change them. The Cowboy minigame and then Susie-Zilla both have different versions of them that get thrown in the mix later. I bring it up briefly in later in the audio, but I wanted to clarify real fast and show them on screen, so I don't get any comments about it. So sorry about that. Now back to I guess present expressive, or I guess I don't know, recording whatever he's called. I hate that guy. All of these minigames are pretty inventive and genuinely super fun to play. I am of the opinion that Chapter 3 gameplay-wise is the best chapter hands down, and these are a pretty compelling case for that argument. But the best part about these is not only the games themselves, but that nearly all of them are present in the chapter before their boss fight. The rhythm game gets its own physical challenge at the end of one of the boards. Same goes for the cooking minigame. Soul Shooter is present in the Shadow Man fights as the main act you must do to spare them. The Cowboy one you play earlier during the red carpet areas. And Suzyzilla, while optional, you can play in the A rank room earlier in the chapter behind a locked door. This works so unbelievably well because you already have a basis of how each of these mechanics work, and you have to test your skill at completing them at such an elevated pace. You almost don't expect them, and some of them have pretty difficult mechanics to get good at, like the rhythm game one. That is unless you're Star, because for some reason that man is freakishly good at rhythm games. But if you don't have rhythm, I have horrible news. And also, the minigames get faster and more frequent the longer you go into the fight, so you can play 3 to 4 minigames in one round at some point. It keeps the Warioware difficulty curve perfectly preserved into the Tennified version. On top of all of that, the Wariowareness is made even more interesting when you factor in Deltarune mechanics into the fray. For each minigame you mess up on or get hit on, your party members will take damage from it. That's where the act options come in. Using 26% TP, you can pick either Suzy and Chris to participate in the minigame, Ralsei and Chris, or all 3 members for a lesser 8 TP. If you pick Suzy and Chris, Ralsei won't be damaged whenever you get hit. If Ralsei's there instead of Suzy, Suzy won't get damaged, and so on and so forth. So now there's more strategy on who takes damage for what cost. If you want to have more guaranteed acts, you could go with the lesser TP option and select all 3 for the minigame. If you want to play it safe but for extra TP, you go with Suzy or Ralsei. This system of punishment and acting gives the fight a lot more maneuverability in terms of how you proceed. Ralsei could be in critical health, so you can then pick to include Suzy in this minigame while you use Ralsei's turn to heal himself. There are some times where you might not even have TP anymore and will have to use a turn to build up some so you can continue to progress the fight. You're given a lot of options during this fight that make it all the more strategically engaging to participate in besides the Warioware mechanics. Sure, just a singular central act to engage in the minigame and progress the fight wouldn't be the worst thing due to how fun the minigames are, but having multiple diverging paths that shift around based on who takes damage and how much TP you have to spend is really refreshing. Deltarune goes out of its way to build the idea of a Warioware fight in its own Deltarune type of way. Kudos to them for making this fight super engaging to participate in. Once you do enough minigames, Tenna will send one last channel switching barrage at you. You are thrown into a lightning round where you must survive multiple amounts of minigames back to back to back to back to back. Each time the minigame switches, the minigame duration gets faster, so you have to be extremely focused. This is pretty much everything in the boss before it, but on copious amounts of crack. My point earlier about how Warioware tests your reactionary skills is truly encompassed here in a way I don't see Warioware do often outside of hard modes. At a certain point, you only see the minigame for about 2 seconds, so it ramps up quickly. Especially on the more technically demanding minigames like the cooking and soul shoot, it gets pretty hard to keep up with the stimulation I'm looking at on my screen. Once you complete enough of these rapid fire minigames, you now have to soul shoot Tenna himself on stage. This part of the final attack isn't hard at all, but it's pretty cool to see the soul shoot from earlier applied to Tenna himself as the last attack. The health bar drops to 0 and Tenna has been defeated.
I won!
Tenna's final boss fight may very well be my favorite boss fight in all of Deltarune, and in terms of all-time bosses, I'm sure it makes my list. To see a series I hold so dear be implemented in another series I also hold so dear is remarkable. Along with adapting it in an intriguing way, I'm very happy with the minigame selection we received, and I think all of them are super fun. I haven't really been displeased with any of them showing up when I've played the Tenna fight, so that's a win. I'm also very happy with the act mechanics of this fight and how more engaging they make the fight itself. From all angles, they nailed the TV man's boss, and I couldn't be happier. Oh yeah, and right before I cap off this section, I must mention, his boss theme is a banger. For our final topic on tonight's program, we'll be discussing the writing and narrative parts of Tenna's character. What I love most about Tenna's role within the Deltarune narrative isn't even necessarily pertaining to Tenna himself, but what he provides to the other characters surrounding him. To put a term to it, I'd call it his narrative insight. When you're in the business like Tenna is, you meet a lot of people and shake a ton of hands. Said hands have been present in Deltarune numerous times, surprisingly. Perhaps the most intimate relationship Tenna has had with another character is that of the lovable salesman himself, Spamton G. Spamton. We got hints that there was at least some past history with the two during the whole Spamton sweepstakes ordeal, but nothing more. So we were left anticipating what this walking CRT had to do with the emails guy. Turns out, everything. They weren't just buddy-buddies. These two were actually full-on business partners. Spamton, by the time he met Tenna, was somewhat of a big shot himself. Tenna, who wanted a piece of the pie himself, linked up with the gremlin and began both partnership and negotiation to figure out what Spamton's secret was. Eventually, as we discover in the secret route minigame in the S-tier room, Tenna finally got Spamton to sign a full-on contract and tell him how he got successful. Tenna recalls it like so.
If only he hadn't abandoned me, my old partner. I was gonna put him on TV, make him a star. I gave him everything. Everything I had. My life advice. All he had to do was tell me what his little secret was. His secret to being a big shot. It took a little sweet talk, but when I had just finally gotten him to sign the deal, he suddenly had to take a phone call. But when he picked it up, his face turned pale, and he ran right out the room with the receiver hanging. So I went to pick it up, thinking it was finally my chance to be a big shot. But there was nobody there. That little freak ripped me off. I wish they never brought that laptop home.
This helps put the pieces to Spamton's past together perfectly. After you beat Spamton Neo in Chapter 2, you can find a group of Addisons in the Trash Zone who tell you a summary of Spamton's past. This dialogue explains to us that he had an unknown caller that would help him day in and day out, and pretty much made him the big shot he was. We were told in Chapter 2 that the caller eventually stopped calling, but we never got a reason as to why that was. It's pretty much agreed upon that said caller was Gaster, but that's besides the point I'm trying to make. With Tenna's side of the story, it's very clear the caller left Spamton dry because he was about to start sharing the trade secrets or whatever. We were given a reason for the great Spamton fall-off because Tenna in Chapter 3, so it's pretty awesome. After this, both went their separate ways, and by that, I mean they divorced. Yep, just straight up divorce. A couple of pieces of evidence from the sweepstakes and the way it relates to the game could suggest that their relationship was more than transactional, if you catch my drift. Not sure on the full merit of it, but to be honest, it's an extremely funny thought that those two were married in business. After they split, they continued their business affairs separately. The best part about this is there's actually a bunch of quirks about them that both of them share. For instance, Tenna's TV Time VHS intro has this sound in it. You can hear this motif multiple times throughout Chapter 3, both a part of other songs and used for one or two of the text pop-ups. In Chapter 2, Spamton's first appearance is greeted with the exact same sound. To go even further with these comparisons, Tenna during his boss fight says this line of flavor text. Both of these Spamton has also referred to previously, and Spamton was a literal car salesman. To top it off, Spamton would use hyperlinks to emphasize some of his speech, which looks eerily similar to what Tenna did with his pop-up text. So these two broke up and immediately started stealing from each other. It's not a one man took everything from me situation. No, both of them did this to the other's ideas and quirks. It's one of my favorite parts of the newest chapters because it gives a lot more insight on Spamton, as well as giving him a built relationship with another character in a super fun way. They'll both be my favorite Tumblr sexy men, even if they hate each other's guts. But to shift topics, by far the most insight Tenna allows us to see into other characters is that of the Dreamer and Holiday families. Tenna is very clearly the Dreamer's family TV in their living room. During his pre-boss cutscene, he shows us what it was like. Back in the day, the Dreamers and Holidays would gather together and watch television. Everyone, including Tenna, were happy. But then, one by one they began to stop showing up to watch Tenna anymore. First Des, then Carol, then Asgore, then Rudy, then Azriel, then Chris, then finally Toriel. Throughout Chapter 3, Tenna makes multiple comments about Chris and the Dreamer family. Based solely on memory, he talks about Toriel and Azriel too. I have a very fuzzy memory, but I do definitely recall that he did at some point. Tenna really is a lot more of a personal antagonist compared to the previous two chapters' main characters. He sat in the Dreamer home throughout the years and kind of just observed everything happening around him. He has first-hand experience through Chris's whole life, and he can engage with them in a much more interesting way. He's kinda like his own Dreamer family member in a way. Unfortunately, divorce left him very neglected compared to the other family members. I'm honestly kind of sympathetic for Tenna in that way. With all this tragedy happening within the family, he has to watch it all unfold, and said tragedy has a huge effect on him. All that attention and joy he received from everyone was slowly cut from him, until he had nobody left to enjoy him. He just wants to be seen and make people happy. His experience regarding the Dreamers leaves him pretty insecure too. Anytime somebody doesn't want to participate in his game show, or says something discouraging about it, he gets visibly very bummed and upset. It's often used for comedic effect, but you can tell that Tenna is very concerned if people are having fun either watching or participating in his show. It's very clearly rooted in the fact that he's scared of becoming irrelevant or unwanted anymore. The last thing Tenna wants is to collect dust again. Sure, he's the opposing force of this chapter, but he really never had any bad intentions to begin with. He just wanted to be seen again, just like he was all those years ago. Even when he went just a tad extreme with the whole imprisonment bit, I can never be mad at the guy. He deserves to be happy. One thing I'm super grateful about in Chapter 4 is that we can give Tenna to Mettaton. It warms my heart that he can get his happy ending, and has a roomie who will give him the love and joy he wants and, quite frankly, deserves. And with that, this program comes to an end. Thanks for being a loyal viewer and sticking till the end. I appreciate it. I've been wanting to dip my toes into Deltarune content for a year, and a talking TV was the push I needed to do it. Truthfully, I've never made a Deltarune video essay before this, for the sole reason that there wasn't anything I wanted to talk about. Most of the more intriguing details of chapters 1 and 2 had already been discussed for years by the time I started the channel. Chapter 3's release was my lucky ticket to actually be able to engage in the discourse while the iron was still hot. I'm very glad that I did now, because Tenna is genuinely my favorite character in this game. Huge thanks to my good friends Lumalight and Creation of Light for lending their voices for the game show skit from earlier. They crushed it and had exactly what I was looking for. Also, if there's any information in this video that I got wrong, please let me know in the comments. There's so much to unpack in Deltarune that there's a pretty high chance I did without realizing. I'll be sure to make a correction comment and pin it if I get anything wrong. Last thing, if you're a new-time viewer that is expecting me to become a full-fledged Deltarune channel with minimal other content, don't get your hopes up. Yes, I will be making Deltarune videos and streams in the future, but it will never be my main thing. I'm still a horror fan and indie fan at heart, and will continue to cover anything that interests me. If that's cool with you, feel free to stick around. Well, that's all from me. Until next time, cheers!